July 1st, 1863. At dawn, 71,000 Confederate soldiers, led by Robert E. Lee, march across the Pennsylvania countryside. They are on a collision course with 93,000 Union troops who are dug in on the high ground. This battle will ultimately result in 51,000 men being dead, wounded, or missing. Lee's army will be shattered, marking the Confederacy's end. But let's change one thing. What if, instead of Lee's army, a physical embodiment of a death sentence rolled across the countryside? We're talking about a single Abrams M1, a 2-Saab V3 main battle tank, a 70-ton monster from 2023, armed with weapons that could level entire city blocks and armor that the year 1863 couldn't even fathom. And it has just crested the hill from Cashtown. So, what happens when $24 million and 160 years of military evolution crashes into America's defining moment? Well, the M1 Abrams is 67 tons of pure terror. It's powered by a 1,500 horsepower gas turbine engine that sounds like the screams of hell as it barrels toward the enemy at 42 miles per hour. This is happening 20 years before the world would even see a car hit 10 miles per hour. And let's see what this rolling apocalypse brought to the party. One 120mm smoothbore cannon that can fire up to 40 democracy-delivering shells, twice as powerful as anything that existed in Lincoln's time. Plus, two 7.62mm machine guns that unload 950 rounds per minute. And a 50 cal Browning that can deliver 10 backstage passes to meet God every second. All of this is covered in Chauvelin composite armor, which is layered with steel ceramics and depleted uranium. For context, the most powerful cannon at Gettysburg might dent the paint job. Maybe. And if this wasn't enough, it's got thermal imaging that can spot heat signatures through smoke, laser rangefinders, and a ballistic computer that makes sure your bullets and someone else's skull can finally reunite. Essentially, this thing is not supposed to be in 1863. Standing foolishly on their ground is General George Meade and his Army of the Potomac, 93,700 strong. These are veteran troops who have survived Bull Run, Antietam, and Fredericksburg battle-hardened soldiers who know how to fight. They are armed with 58 caliber rifle muskets that can kill a man at 800 yards and have 372 pieces of artillery. This includes everything from nimble 3-inch rifled guns to massive 12-pounder, Napoleons that can blow apart cavalry charges. The Union artillery crews are some of the best in the world. They have perfected the art of 19th century warfare. But here's the problem. These weapons were designed to fight other humans, not war machines. At 7:30 a.m., Union cavalry under General John Buford spot movement on the Chambersburg Pike. They're expecting Confederate skirmishers, but are met with a metal behemoth with anger issues barreling toward them. Remember, these are men who have never seen something this big move this fast. The Abrams's thermal sights immediately pick up heat signatures, and the 120mm gun swivels toward the first Union battery positioned on Hare's Ridge. The high explosive round hits a 3-inch ordnance rifle dead center. The cannon, its crew, and most of their ammunition explode in a fireball that can be seen from Gettysburg. The surviving gunners watch as their comrades vanish in the blink of an eye. Buford's cavalry opens fire with their Spencer repeating carbines. Bullets ping off the Abrams's hull, a sound the crew inside might confuse for raindrops. The tank's 50 caliber machine gun responds, a weapon that fires rounds designed to stop aircraft, not horsemen. At 1,800 meters, it starts picking off cavalry officers. The sound of the Abrams's turbine engine terrifies every animal in the area, including the horses that have never heard anything louder than cannon fire. Cavalry units break without orders, bolting in the opposite direction. By 10:30 a.m., when Union General John Reynolds arrives with the Iron Brigade, Buford's line has already collapsed. The tank has punched through in under 3 hours, a delay that historically lasted all morning. Reynolds deploys his 10,000 infantry along Seminary Ridge, and the Iron Brigade, made up of farm boys famous for their fancy black hats, forms battle lines near McPherson's Ridge. They have never run from a fight. Today might be different. The Abrams crests the ridge, and 1,500 Union soldiers open fire in perfect volleys. The crash of massed musketry fills the air with thick white smoke. Yet, through thermal sights, the tank crew sees every movement behind it. The tank loads a 120 mm canister round filled with over 1,000 tungsten balls that turn the main gun into the world's biggest shotgun. At 600 meters, it fires into the center of the Iron Brigade's line, and in an instant, 50% of the force ceases to exist. Before the survivors can reload, the coaxial machine gun opens up, unleashing 950 rounds per minute. General Reynolds, trying to rally his troops amidst the chaos, makes himself a target, and a single 50 caliber round ends the career of one of the Union's best generals. Within an hour, most of the Iron Brigade has been evicted from Earth, while survivors flee through Gettysburg in a panic, spreading tales of an invisible iron monster. By afternoon, what remains of the 2 Union corps huddle on Cemetery Hill and Culp's Hill, historically the high ground advantage that decided the battle. But high ground means nothing when the enemy is immune to your firepower and can climb a 45-degree slope. As evening approaches, the tank begins its assault on Cemetery Hill. Union artillery opens up with everything they have. Dozens of cannons fire in coordinated salvos. The thunder is deafening, and again, smoke blankets the battlefield. The tank returns fire with 120 mm rounds that destroy artillery and their crews. By sunset on July 1st, Cemetery Hill goes quiet. On July 2nd at dawn, instead of 93,000 Union troops, maybe 30,000 survivors hide in scattered positions. The rest are dead, wounded, or have abandoned their units in terror. The Union leadership faces an impossible decision. Retreat means abandoning the Pennsylvania campaign and possibly the war effort. But to fight means to face off against a god that traded 60,000 lives for a few dents. But even gods have weaknesses. The Abrams is running low on fuel and has expended over half its main gun ammunition. There's also maintenance. Modern military equipment requires constant care. The air filters are clogged with dust, the track links are showing wear, and a thrown track or engine failure in hostile territory would be catastrophic. Still, within the 3-day time frame of Gettysburg, these limitations don't matter. The tank has accomplished what Lee's entire army couldn't: complete destruction of Union resistance in Pennsylvania. The victory at Gettysburg would send shockwaves through the Union. With the Army of the Potomac destroyed, nothing stands between the Confederate forces and Washington, D.C. The war that historically turned at Gettysburg could end with a Confederate victory instead. A single M1 Abrams at Gettysburg would single-handedly alter the course of history. The careful tactics, brave charges, and artillery duels that defined Civil War combat become irrelevant the moment it rolled onto the field. The tank would be remembered as the Iron Devil of Gettysburg, and 5 words would echo through all of history. Subscribe to Extra Brain Cells if you want to see what happens when a modern destroyer faces off against the Japanese Navy at Midway. Check out the video on your screen. And if you're curious about what would happen if a modern submarine fought the Spanish Armada, subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss it next week. Thanks for watching.